Ever since I was a child, I have faced trust issues. It all started because of the relationship with my mother, which left a lot to be desired. Eventually, I grew up, became fully independent, and found a good job. Then a girl came into my life that I fell in love with. But at first, I didn't notice the warning signs she was giving. One day, Tony burst into Rick's office, as usual, not bothering to knock. Rick was busy on the phone and gestured for her to stay out of the way. But Tony paid no attention and walked confidently to his desk. Sitting on his lap, she ignored his attempts to maintain her concentration. Tony, being 8 months pregnant and looking very visible, showed a special affection. Apologizing for the call, I thanked her with a kiss on the cheek. Although Tony was pregnant and looked impressive, I couldn't consider myself the father of the child. There are several reasons for this. First, there's Gino Antonelli, Tony's husband. Gino is a big man, about 6'3" and 240 pounds. He holds a significant position in my advertising firm and is a close friend of mine. Second, Tony was my adopted sister. Her family adopted and raised me when I was 5 years old. I won't talk about my early years and the reasons for my adoption, but they were not easy. Feelings of insecurity often overwhelmed me, and in search of solace, I sometimes slept in the same bed as Tony. We shared a similar age and personality, which over time led to the formation of a strong bond that remains to this day. Although I called Gino my best friend, it was originally Tony. Let's move back to the story. My name is Richard Kale, but most people know me as Rick or Castile. I own Castilla Advertising Agency, where Tony works as my personal assistant and Gino works as the production manager. The company also employs approximately 25 people in a variety of positions. Our agency has a solid reputation in the industry and boasts numerous successful advertising campaigns. Financially, we are stable, which benefits both myself and all of my employees. After ending my call, I kissed Tony on the cheek. "How are you feeling, baby?" I asked. She smiled her beautiful smile and replied, "Oh, Ricky, baby is incredibly active today. He is moving around so much that finding a comfortable position to stand or sit is becoming a real challenge. I'm glad we are nearing the end. I can't wait for little Ricky to join us." The prospect of labor made me a little nervous, but with millions of people going through it, I felt confident that I could handle it too. Placing my hand on her rounded belly, I felt the movements she was describing. The sensation of the baby's kicks was truly exhilarating. They were expecting a boy. I had seen the ultrasound myself, and there was no mistaking it. They even decided to honor me by naming him Ricky. Tony added that she had arranged a temporary replacement for me while she was on maternity leave. "Please make sure you're available at 4:00 p.m. and set aside at least a half hour," she reminded me. "Okay," I replied to Tony. "It's hard to imagine who could adequately replace you." She grinned and quickly parried, "Don't think anyone can replace me permanently, buddy. It's only a temporary solution." She mentioned that her replacement was named Kate Becker and seemed quite competent. "So don't worry, the job will get done," she assured me. Tony got up from my lap and headed for the door. "Yes," I said as she walked out of the office with admirable grace. I had always admired the beauty of pregnant women, especially the radiant blush on their faces. At 4 p.m. that afternoon, Tony knocked on my door. When I met her, a young woman was standing next to her. Tony introduced us, "Rick Castile, this is Kate Becker." Kate approached my desk, and I stood up to greet her. "It's a pleasure to meet you. Do you prefer to be addressed as Kate or Ms. Becker?" I asked. She smiled back. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Castile. I prefer Ms. Becker." I smiled, and turning to Tony, I joked, "Tony, why don't you show Kate how to make my coffee? I drink it with cream and a teaspoon of sugar." Noticing the flash of irritation in Kate's eyes, I kept my expression calm, hiding my pleasure at the situation. In the hallway, Kate expressed her doubts to Tony. "Mrs. Antonelli, I'm not sure this is going to work. Despite my request that he address me as Ms. Becker, he keeps calling me Kate and giving orders so quickly that it seems there may be a conflict of personalities. I'm not sure I can handle it." Tony grinned back. "Don't worry, Kate. I've known Rick for a long time. This is just his way of testing. Just get used to it and you'll be fine." The two women returned to the dining room. Kate poured Rick a cup of black coffee. Tony raised an eyebrow and asked, "What are you doing?" Rick asked for cream and sugar. Kate smiled back. "Yeah, I guess it's his little test." Back in Rick's office, they talked and laughed. Kate placed the coffee in front of Rick and said, "Here's your coffee, Mr. Castile." Rick tasted it and frowned. "Well, Miss Becker, that concludes our interview. It was nice meeting you, goodbye," he said. Tony and Kate were dumbfounded and tried to say something back, but Rick was already saying goodbye. As they walked toward the door, Rick added, "Oh, and Kate, I'd rather you call me Rick than Mr. Castile. And just so you know, I prefer my coffee black. I'll see you tomorrow morning." Walking out of the office, Tony and Kate muttered simultaneously, "What the hell?" As they left, however, they laughed. Tony remarked, "You may never get used to it, but it's not so bad the next morning." The next day, Kate peeked into Rick's office and said hello. "Good morning, Rick. Would you like some coffee?" I grinned back, "I'll join you in a couple minutes and we can both grab some." "If I let you handle it, there'll be cream and sugar," I continued. We laughed as we walked to the restroom. "We can quickly learn the coffee tradition here," I said. "If you're getting coffee for yourself, feel free to bring me a cup too if I'm with customers. Politely offer them coffee and refill it periodically. If I'm busy, I'll make my own coffee, but I'm happy to get you a cup if you want one, Kate. I noticed the spark in your eyes yesterday, and it made me decide to take the test. You exceeded my expectations. I don't need a passive and overly obliging assistant. I need someone who can give me valuable advice and point out mistakes I might make. Your opinion is always valued and considered. However, when I gather all the information and make a decision, it will be final. I'm sure we can work well together, Kate. Please don't take yesterday's challenge as something personal. I just wanted to see what you could do, and I was impressed." She just smiled. "Now let me introduce you to Kate. She is quite tall, about 5 feet 10 inches. As far as weight goes, she is fuller than average, not conforming to conventional standards of attractiveness. Her facial features are not classically beautiful, and her hair doesn't emphasize her looks. Her unflattering choice of clothing is unlikely to attract the attention of many men. However, from the moment I first saw her, there was something in her eyes that captivated me. In the weeks that followed, I began to see her as a truly beautiful person. Kate proved to be an invaluable personal assistant, bringing brilliance to every project she touched. She accompanied me to meetings, providing meaningful feedback. We often had dinner together afterward and occasionally traveled out of town, always with separate accommodations. Despite this strictly professional relationship, a strong friendship developed between us. While I was aware of my growing feelings for her, I was also aware of the potential risks of a romantic relationship with a coworker. While waiting for Tony to return from maternity leave, I cherished thoughts of the possibility of a romantic relationship with Kate, although I realized it could be a mistake. My plans were disrupted when Tony asked for an extra 12 weeks of vacation. This meant Kate would stay with us for another 3 months. Although workplace romances can be difficult, I was grateful for her continued presence. Ultimately, I decided to adjust my personal beliefs and begin a romantic relationship with her despite her status as an employee. I justified this decision with her temporary status in the company. I asked her out to dinner one night without any professional excuse, and she accepted. In the weeks that followed, Kate became more concerned about her appearance. One day she approached me in my office and asked for a private meeting. I naturally agreed. At the meeting she opened up to me, "Rick, I feel your affection for me, and I reciprocate those feelings. But at times I am insecure about my appearance. I've noticed some clients looking at me and asking why you're with me." I smiled warmly at her and assured her, "Kate, you're absolutely right. I adore you just the way you are. But if you're not happy with your looks, let's change something. You know I run almost every day. Why don't you join me? We'll start at a comfortable pace, and before you know it, you'll feel better. We can also go to the gym together to make you feel even better." I added, "And remember, I love you just the way you are. But if you want to boost your confidence and well-being, I'll fully support you. Let's think about updating your closet, a new hairstyle, maybe even cosmetic procedures." When I suggested this, she slapped me jokingly and we both laughed. But I added seriously, "Kate, if you are considering any procedure, I will support you financially. Just know that my love for you won't change because of it." Kate put in a lot of hard work and within 2 months had noticeable results. She exercised intensely and lost a significant amount of weight. She also changed her hairstyle and made a few minor cosmetic improvements. Although those around her began to see her as an amazing woman, to me she remained the same Kate I had fallen in love with. In my eyes, she was beautiful regardless of the changes. In early August, at a company picnic at a local park, I decided to propose. Getting down on one knee, I asked Kate if she would agree to be my wife. Her smile, mixed with tears, gave away the answer even before her words. "Yes, Rick, I will be your wife," she replied. Kate took on the job of planning our wedding, and I contributed where I could. But, as many of you may know, the principle of shut up, splurge, and show up often applies not only to the father of the bride, but also to the groom. Consequently, much of the planning took place without my direct involvement. Fortunately, Tony, with whom I have a deep connection, played a significant role in ensuring that many of my preferences were taken into account. Everything was going smoothly until an unexpected problem arose. Kenny Pierce, a marketing representative for Corone Enterprises, a perfume manufacturer, came to Chicago to collaborate on a new ad campaign. I hadn't liked Kenny since his last visit because of his interest in Tony. Gino, noticing his interest, immediately stepped in and with his imposing presence made Kenny back off. You can imagine my surprise when I found out that Kate knew Kenny. It turned out that they had gone to high school together and then to the same university. To my horror, Kenny admired her a lot. Kate confided in me that she had always had feelings for Kenny during her high school years. At the time, he paid no attention to her as she was not considered attractive among her peers. However, now, to my surprise, Kenny was taking an active interest in her, and she seemed to be enjoying his attention after work. Kate and I went out to dinner, and I mentioned how much attention Kenny was paying her and how she was reacting to it. She took offense and accused me of being self-centered, said that Kenny was only here for one day and that she enjoyed his company so I should get over it. When she demanded that I accepted, I sensed trouble ahead. Dinner passed in a tense atmosphere, and after we finished, Kate declared that she just wanted to go home. I drove her happily away and then headed to the nearest dive bar for a couple of drinks. I rarely drink, so no, I didn't get drunk, but I really wanted to. I clearly didn't like the situation, but I decided to go along with it because she was right. Kenny would be gone by noon the next day, Friday, and it would all be over. Around 10 the next morning, Kate walked into my office and closed the door behind her. She sat down and said, "Rick, I don't know how to say this, but Kenny is leaving today for Las Vegas for the weekend, and he asked me to go with him." I must have looked shocked because she continued, "I know this sounds weird, but I'd always wondered what it would be like to be Kenny's girlfriend. Rick, do you love me enough to let me do that for just one weekend and then I'd be all yours?" My first reaction was, "Kate, let me make sure I get this right." I continued, "You want to spend the weekend with Kenny, the guy you had a crush on in high school, the guy who never paid attention to you when you were overweight. And now that you're beautiful, he can't take his eyes off you. You want me to approve of that. You're willing to jeopardize our relationship for a man who didn't love you then and loves you now. Not for who you are or what you look like. Is that what you're asking me to approve of?" "Rick, it's not," she replied. "I just feel like I need to do it, so I don't always wonder what I'm missing out on. Don't you understand that? You don't love me enough to let me do this? Kate, I'm begging you, don't go off with him. Please don't do this. I love you enough to let you go if you really feel you have to do it. But do you love me enough to stay? Okay, you said you love me enough to let me go, so I'm going to leave. But when I come back, I'm going to make you the happiest man on earth. Okay, I can't convince you not to go. But if you have any decency, give me my ring back. I don't want my fiance sleeping with some guy while wearing my ring." She looked shocked and hurt. "Oh, Rick, please don't make me give you the ring. Please, if you're leaving with him, give me the ring back." Her eyes flashed like lightning. She was on the verge of losing control, but managed to pull herself together. She took the ring off and placed it on my desk without handing it to me directly, then stood up. "Okay, Rick, if that's the way it's going to be, I'm leaving now," Kate said as she walked out of my office. As Kate left, I muttered quietly, "Goodbye, Kate. I hope it's worth it." She turned around and asked with deep sadness, "What did you say?" I repeated, "I said goodbye, Kate. I hope it's worth it." A strange expression flashed across her face, but she left the room. Shortly afterward, I watched her drive away from the building. I could fill countless pages right now describing the whirlwind of emotions that swept over me. from rage, anger, hatred to pain, frustration, sadness, and love to vindictiveness. I spent about an hour at my desk thinking about my life, my love for Kate, my hatred for her, and what actions I should take towards her and Kenny. Once the severe headache subsided a bit, I made 2 phone calls. The first call was to Tony. "Hey, how's Ricky waking up?" I asked. Tony replied, "Hi Rick. Ricky feels great. Yes, he's awake now. I'll put him down for a nap this afternoon. Tony, could you come to the office for about an hour? Take Ricky with you. I want to hold him. There's a situation here that I need to discuss with you when you can." She inquired about my well-being, and I admitted that I wasn't all right, but we'd go into it in more depth once she got there. The second call I made was to Luca Diano. Gino wasn't the only one with connections. Luca Diano also had good connections. Tony and my Uncle Bernardo were close friends with Luca's father, but more importantly, Uncle Bernardo had a lot more connections than any of us. "Luca, this is Rick Castile. I know it's been a while, and I apologize for not staying in touch. I promised to be better," I began. After he scolded me a bit and I expressed my sincere apology, he encouraged me to get to the purpose of my call. I couldn't help but feel like I was making a mistake. "Luca, I have a serious favor to ask of you. My ex, Kate Becker, is leaving O'Hare today at 2:00 p.m. for a flight to Las Vegas. Kenny Pierce will be with her. I think you can find out the flight information and organize surveillance on their arrival. I need to know what hotel they will be staying at and delay their check-in to buy time to set up surveillance. I need documents, photos, audio, and video of their actions and conversations by tomorrow noon. Please email everything to me tomorrow morning afternoon. It doesn't matter how you do it, but it is important that they feel monitored. Give the impression that you are working for Kenny's wife, Marilyn. Your job is to disrupt the rest of their weekend. Do no harm, but instilling fear is acceptable. Thank you, Luca. I'll make sure Uncle Bernardo knows about your help. When Bernardo is happy, everyone will be happy. Inform me of the expenses, whatever the amount. I promise to properly express my gratitude when the job is done. Farewell, my friend. I look forward to the details." When Tony entered my office, I stood up and closed the door behind her. I hugged her and took little Ricky in my arms, cradling him against me. He was growing all the time, but he was still a little lump to me. Kissed his forehead, savoring his softness and warmth. The realization that my desire to have a baby hit me so hard because it didn't happen the way I had hoped. A single tear rolled down my cheek, no doubt catching Tony's attention. "Ricky, what's wrong, honey? Please share with me what's bothering you," she asked. I told her all about the conversation with Kate in which she expressed all her thoughts. The look on Tony's face was saddened as she hugged me again. "Oh, Rick, I'm so sorry. What can I do for you? Could you give me a couple hours every day for the next week? I just need help with some administrative tasks, and then we'll see how things go." I spent the rest of the day strategizing for the upcoming week, making the necessary calls to get started. I wrapped up my business at the office, though I did bring some tasks home in anticipation of a busy weekend. On Saturday afternoon, Luca called me to let me know that he had collected all the requested materials and would be emailing them to me shortly. I expressed my thanks and assured him that I would be in touch soon. I devoted several hours to reviewing the photos and videos Luca had sent. I especially scrutinized the intimate moments containing surprising revelations. I made sure to print out a few frames from the video to include in my presentation. I also created a couple of short videos for greater effect. I spent the rest of the night tweaking my presentation until it was perfected. I went to bed feeling like I hadn't slept well, although I was pretty sure I had managed to get some sleep. Early Sunday morning I got up, finalized my presentation, and spent the rest of my time before heading to the airport. Monday morning when Kate arrived at the office, she was surprised to see Tony there. "Tony, unexpected to see you here. Where's Rick?" I've been trying to call him all night without success. His phone seems to have been turned off. Tony met Kate's gaze with a neutral expression and replied, "Hi, Ms. Becker." She handed Kate an envelope and continued, "This is your official notice of termination from Castile's advertising agency. Your temporary employment agency has also been informed. Thank you for your service." Kate was stunned and struggled to find words. "What's going on, Tony?" she asked. "Mr. Castile has instructed me to fire you," Tony explained. "I've already packed your personal belongings. They're in this box." She pointed to a cardboard box on the desk and then handed it to Kate. Kate, shocked, stated, "I'm going to talk to Rick and sort things out. Rick is unavailable at the moment, so that's not possible. You'll have to leave the building right now," Tony replied. "Where's Rick?" Kate inquired. "He's actually in New York representing Corone Enterprises at the launch of their new ad campaign," Tony explained. Kate was hit with another shock, her facial expression betraying her disbelief. "Rick and I were supposed to go to New York together for this presentation," she lamented. "We planned to make this trip special just for the two of us," she added with tears in her eyes. Tony, though sympathetic, remained composed. "Ms. Becker, I believe this was before your trip to Las Vegas with another man. Rick won't be back until Friday, and he asked me to schedule a meeting with you on Friday at 4 p.m. Kate could barely reply, "Yes, very well, he will see me at 4 p.m. Kate endured 4 horrible days on Friday waiting to see Rick. She tried several times to contact him on his cell phone, but each call went unanswered, leading her to voicemail. Upon arrival in New York, Rick contacted HRI Corone to arrange a meeting at his hotel to unveil the new ad campaign. He expressed a preference for a non-corporate setting for personal reasons and asked HRI to bring his daughter Marilyn along. Despite repeated calls from Kate, Rick ignored Kate's calls, directing them to voicemail and then deleting them without listening to them. At the presentation, he approached R. Crown and Marilyn Pierce for 2 purposes: to present a promising ad campaign and to discuss a personal matter involving Kenny, Marilyn's husband. The presentation took an unexpected turn for Kenny and his father-in-law, Henry Corone of Corone Enterprises. Henry was upset to discover that his son-in-law was romantically involved with another woman. Marilyn was furious, though not surprised, given her suspicions of Kenny's infidelity. Having concrete evidence gave her a sense of vindication. The commercials featured provocative images of Kenny and the other woman. Although Rick was unhappy with the pictures, he appreciated the potential of the ad campaign concept. He suggested calling the new fragrance Euphoria, arguing that the images perfectly conveyed the idea, "Wear me and feel the euphoria." Henry and Marilyn were stunned to see Kenny in the photos with another woman, but they quickly realized the brilliance of the concept and its potential to promote the new fragrance. "Rick, you've realized something, and we appreciate your insight. The emotion this woman conveys is truly remarkable," they said. Rick grinned and added, "Now I'm pretty sure you'll want to find another male model for this role, since Kenny doesn't seem to be aware of the situation. But think about the fact that the woman in these images is stunning and exudes sensuality. We can all see that each person has their own unique appeal that is almost impossible to replicate with someone else. It's like no one can replace Andie MacDowell in the L'Oreal ads because you're worth it, or Kate Walsh." The Cadillac CTS commercial claims that when you start the car, it reciprocates, and Cindy Crawford in the Pepsi ad is also indispensable. "I think the image of this woman is exactly what we needed for our campaign," Rick said while discussing details with HRI. "Her name is Allison Kendall. I'm not sure if that's her real name, but it's the one she uses. I have her number written down. Just so you know, she works as a call girl. I'm not sure if she'd be interested in changing her field, but all you can do is ask." It looked like Kate Becker had changed her mind on the way to Vegas, as they had booked separate rooms upon arrival. All signs pointed to her rejecting Kenny's advances. Kate had never slept with Kenny, but unfortunately, the damage had already been done. Frustrated, Kenny hired a prostitute who ended up in all the campaign photos. Luckily, Luca kept tabs on Kenny, which resulted in some fantastic concept images. Hopefully, Allison will agree to be in the commercial, as she is perfect for the role. Details on Kenny's subsequent adventures are not required, but rest assured that he faced serious consequences on Friday afternoon. Kate spoke to Rick. "Rick, I don't understand what's going on here. Why did you fire me? I know you still need a personal assistant and Tony doesn't. I'm not ready to come back yet. Please, Rick, I didn't sleep with Kenny, I swear." "Kate, why should I believe you since you went with him alone to Vegas?" Rick asked. Rick looked at Kate and spoke calmly. "You're telling the truth that you didn't sleep with him. You said I love you enough to let you go." "Yes, I did say that. But the problem, Kate, is that your idea of letting go is different from mine. You thought about leaving, and I thought about giving you your freedom in Vegas. I wanted to set you free so you could decide for yourself. That's the difference. Kate, I know you didn't sleep with Kenny, but that doesn't matter anymore. The damage has already been done. I love you from the moment I met you. I started loving you when you were overweight and not considered attractive. Your looks never mattered to me, but my love wasn't enough for you. You needed the approval of everyone around you, so you lost weight, had some procedures, and improved your looks to beauty. I still loved you then, just like I did before. For me, it wasn't about looks, it was about who you were. But the approval of others wasn't enough for you either. Then Kenny came along and showered you with attention. You absorbed it. Here was Kenny, a guy you'd known for over 8 years, who'd never once noticed you before. And now he's fawning over you, and you fell for it. He didn't love you, Kate. He loved your looks. I loved you, but my love wasn't enough. You asked if I loved you enough to let you go, and I said yes. But I also asked if you loved me enough not to leave. By your actions, you answered the question with a no. You were going to leave no matter what I did. I hoped my words would make you think twice. But you took the ring off and put it on my desk. You left no matter what. In that moment, the damage was done. That's when I realized I could never trust you with my heart. That's when I realized that you would never be enough. There will always be something more important to you than me. I can't live like that, Kate. That's why our relationship ended during that ordeal. Kate remained seated, tears streaming down her cheeks. Gradually, she came to her senses and accepted the mistake she had made, though the realization came too late. She pleaded with Rick, "Rick, I'm so sorry. I admit my grave mistake, but my love for you is sincere. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive me and give me another chance?" "Kate, you don't need my forgiveness," Rick replied. "You've always been free to make your own choices. I have no power or right to dictate your actions. You made your own choices. Obviously, I didn't have the same meaning to you that you had to me. When you put the ring on my desk and walked away, I knew it was over. I bid you farewell, hoping it was worth it. It marked the moment I let you go. It's over, Kate. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors, but our chapter is over." A few months after Kate unsuccessfully tried to contact Rick, he refused to interact with her despite Tony's anger. Kate was able to maintain their friendship and discovered that part of the problem had to do with Rick. Many knew that Kate had never been involved with Kenny, which could have paved the way for forgiveness and a renewed loving relationship. However, Rick's deep psychological scars from his childhood prevented him from doing so. Tony told Kate that Rick's mother had abandoned him after having a lover, callously informing him of her departure without any emotional attachment. Rick was left alone since she had left him for good. This reflected the abandonment he experienced as a child when his father, devastated by his wife's betrayal, fell into alcoholism and eventually died in a car accident. These events left Rick alone, forcing him to navigate the foster care system. Rick was eventually adopted by Tony's family. It took him years to believe that his new family would not abandon him, which signaled the deep wounds left by his past. Although Rick probably needed professional help for his problems, he never sought it. Kate wept bitterly as she learned of the ordeal. Her tears were not only for herself, but also for Rick, since she had recently left him and knew that he would not be able to cope with the ordeal. The situation didn't lend itself to repairing the damage that had been done, and despite numerous attempts to contact Rick, Kate was unsuccessful. He never picked up the phone. Although she left several voicemails, he never called back. She even called him from a payphone once, but as soon as he recognized her voice, he hung up. Although Kate didn't stalk him, she knew his routine, and sometimes, when she was particularly lonely, she would watch him during his runs or see him at a restaurant, hoping for a chance to reconnect. During one early morning call, a woman answered Rick's cell phone. Kate inquired about her identity. "I'm Rick's fiance. Who is this?" The woman asked. "Please tell Rick that Kate called. Tell him that I'm sorry and that I won't bother him again," Kate requested. After that conversation, Kate had lost all hope. She let herself gain weight and neglected her appearance, reverting to the unattractive woman she had been before she met Rick. From time to time, she caught glimpses of Rick and his new wife. Each encounter with them, especially when she saw them with their newborn baby, made her drift further into herself. It was a moment when she felt herself falling inwardly and then disappearing into obscurity. After that, she functioned mechanically. She did her chores, came home, ate, slept, and worked. Her transgression was not egregious. She had not betrayed Rick in the conventional sense of the word, not realizing his vulnerability. However, she still bore the consequences of her actions. Could Rick have forgiven her and possibly saved their relationship? Our experiences shape us, and Rick had been through enough to consider her actions unforgivable. She left him, and she had to face the consequences of her action, no matter how harsh they were.
Thank you so much for watching my video and your time. Please subscribe to my channel and click on the bell button. Also, I am very interested to know your personal opinion about this story. You can write it in the comments. I will definitely read it and reply to you personally.